All this Mexican food is making my stomach crazy.
Alrighty, welcome back to Big Data Week in Chicago. This is part 2 of the Encore Gupta Show. Part 1, we've just seen. Part 2, now we're going to talk about enterprise challenges to Hadoop implementation. It's a lot in one sentence. So, going to let Encore go, and we'll be back to say goodbye for Big Data for the week. So, Encore, take us home, literally.
All right, so we just talked about various use cases associated with the Hadoop. So if you were not live, I encourage you to go back to the presentation later today when it's available for streaming. And hopefully you like some of the use cases that we talked about there, about how Hadoop and other big data tools can help solve a lot of problems that were not possible before. Now, what we're going to go into that why, if that's the case, then why not everybody is doing it. Sebastian, could I request the clicker from you? I think I left it there. So while I'm getting my clicker, Gartner recently released a study. Thank you, sir. Released a study that about 1,000 companies, roughly the number of companies that have actually jumped on using something with big data. And in the previous discussion, I talked to you about, according to a Wikibon survey, a large number of companies report that they have only been able to get partial value out of their data. And about 2% companies reported that they completely failed their big data investment. And there are 3 main reasons. One was they don't have the right talent. The second one is partially immature technology, which was the case when the survey was done, but the technology has come a long way now. And the third one is not having the right use case, and that's the key. So we will continue to stress on that topic a little bit more, and then the whole previous discussion was actually showcasing some of the use cases that Metascale has implemented for some of our customers in various domains and how we were able to help them achieve business success. All right, so let's while we look at this slide, I want to take a moment and talk about who are we? What's Metascale? Those of you who have not heard about us, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Sears Holdings Corporation, the retailer or the holding company that you know that owns Sears, Kmart, Kenmore, Craftsman, another iconic brand that I'm sure you know about. So why a retailer decided to spin off a big data company? Because Sears started on its big data journey several years ago, and Sears team went through the experience of that included the challenges associated with how to implement big data technologies in a large enterprise, how to make governance decisions, how to bring various business functions together so we all can get access to data the way we want it, but still be able to keep our data clean and not run into ETL problems. And then how do we grow our investment in big data and be able to solve the problem or be able to make the business decisions that we want to make, and also be able to reach the business goals that we want to. So for example, a retailer like Sears, we want to digitally engage with our customer. We want to become that retailer that allow you to shop your way. You could shop online, in-store, phone, smartphone, whatever you want to do, but we want to provide that seamless experience to you and understand your shopping behavior better so we can even provide you better offers and more personalized shopping experience, essentially. But while this business case, while this the business idea sounds great, you have to have an underlying IT infrastructure that supports it. And that's where I think a lot of big data tool came in place. So Sears started early on that journey, and then Metascale was formed so we could actually help other companies who are looking into establishing their big data roadmap or implementing big data tools and technologies now. While this space is growing and becoming more and more crowded, and there are vendors coming almost every day and talking about how their software can actually help you, what we have seen is a lack of enterprise-specific vendor. Many vendors who have experience of working with enterprises for a long time, and that's our USP, that's our unique positioning, where Metascale was actually born out of an enterprise. So really what we do is provide you an enterprise perspective. We understand your challenges in an enterprise, and that's the topic today. We want to talk about some of the challenges of why enterprise do not really get into that or unable to get into that the big data implementation quickly. So all right, we'll go into it more. For now, I'll show you this. You can see on the slide that's been there for a while, a classic enterprise challenge. There is constant pressure to lower cost. I mean, I don't know many enterprises where CFO is writing unlimited checks to their IT teams and saying, go do whatever you want. If at all, even if your IT budgets may be growing, but what is happening that a lot more is expected from that IT budget than that was the case before. The data is growing. The processing time, the required processing time is getting shorter. We want to be able to make business decisions quickly. There was a time when it could take a job to run 20 and 30 hours on a legacy system like mainframe or whatever, and that's not the case. You will lose your customer if you don't react to the market condition quickly. Your customers are on social media. Your customers are talking to each other. They're talking about you and your brand. So it's important that you understand them better, and it's important that you're able to react to that changing market conditions quickly, and that's only possible if you have the underlying technology to support that. So that's another case, and then there are of course tight IT budgets that we talked about before. An ETL problem, who doesn't have it? We all know if you ask in any organization, medium or large size, there are multiple copies of the same data. So you really lose the essence of the data, and the same data sometimes can show you different results because data will tell you the story that you want to hear. However you process it, whatever business rule you put on it. So that's this ETL problem that we are all very familiar with only grows with the size of the organization, complexity of the organization. Now, on top of all this, when these IT classic enterprise challenges that are there, you have data that's growing. Now, our life is, as I said in the previous presentation, our lives are becoming more and more digital. Our engagements are becoming more and more digital. We've shown some of the data points that we collected based off of what we found online, that data sources that include social media data and machine data and whatnot. But I guess I feel like while I'm showing you the slide is already old because the data is already growing even more. So there are a lot of stats that are out there and tell about the data that's the data that was created in the last 2 years is as much as the data that was created since the beginning of the mankind, and it's only growing. So that problem that we talked about before, it's only adding to the magnitude of those problems. Now here's a little graph. I believe the source of this is Gartner, if I'm not wrong. But it shows the how traditional RDBMS and Hadoop or traditional EDW and Hadoop can actually help. Where are they applicable for this with the size of the data? So when your data is in gigabytes or terabytes, your traditional RDBMS can do a great job. Your traditional EDW can do a great job. It can provide you the answers quickly. It can provide you answers cost effectively. But once that data runs into several terabytes, typically what we have seen, and there's no magic answer or magic formula to it, but typically when it's 10 terabytes or over, it's the time for you to think about tools like Hadoop and other big data technologies. Because if you know that data is only going to grow from there, what you will realize is that you do not really need to make heavy investments in your traditional EDW to accommodate that data. And a lot of time, as I said in my previous presentation, companies, what they don't realize is what is the usable data. A lot of companies throw a lot of data, and they think what they're using is usable data. But now using latest and greatest big data technologies, you can actually keep all the data for however many years, so you can get insights out of it, and you can better understand whether it's your customer or about your business or network and whatnot. So I guess making some fun things with this clicker here. Now, but how are your organizations using big data? So there are some of the use cases or highlight of use cases what we have shown here. I encourage you to go back and look at the previous discussion. It was about some of the use cases that we discussed. I also encourage you to go to metascale.com and look at our webinar on use cases. We did 2 webinars, use case 1 and use case 2, and both the webinars showcase how Metascale has helped companies meet some of the solve challenges that they were facing using their existing system. So some of the topics we have shown here, we've talked about them in detail, such as getting better insight, be able to analyze large amount of data quickly, be able to get answers quickly, be able to get insights that were not possible before, be able to combine your structure and structured data quickly, be able to get 360 view of customer, whether when they're coming to your establishments or going on social media and whatnot. And things like that. And then what is possible out of it is something like fraud detection. So if for example, for a telecom company, if you are getting a large load of IP addresses and you want to block a certain one, using Hadoop, it's possible to do it in a faster manner because it can process a large amount of data quickly and in a cost-effective manner. And we have built the use cases around it that we'll be happy to demonstrate if somebody is interested in doing so or learning more about. Now, challenges of adopting big data. What I encourage, again, don't mean to make a pitch about our website, but we have detailed information on each one of these slides. So the previous slide, there are webinars about use case 1 and 2. Enterprise challenges of adopting big data. We have published a white paper called Making a Case for Hadoop in Your Organization that actually goes deeper into each of these topics and talk about what are the specific challenges and how do you go about it. So let's talk about some of them here. But in the interest of time, I recommend that you go and download that white paper and read a little bit more about it. So first is how to get value out of big data. And that goes really to what I've heard about big data. I've seen the presentation. I've been to the conference. And I met a bunch of friends who said they have implemented big data in their organizations and be able to get the results. But how do I get it? And even though it may sound obvious, but a lot of companies struggle to find that right use case. A lot of companies struggle to identify success from their big data implementation. And this is the first step. We tell our customers that establish success, identify use cases, take small steps here. The second is determining a strategy. So again, that's identifying your use case as a part of strategy. So it's important that you have both short and long-term strategy with your big data implementation. In the short term, you don't want to make heavy investment. You want to do a couple of proof of concepts. You want to identify a couple of small use cases. You want to see success, and then you start slowly growing your investment, slowly growing your implementation. Then the funny thing is understanding what big data is. Now, big data is a term that's thrown around all over the place. And there are different people will give you different definitions. There are all kind of V's. There are all kind of, processing related definitions that are out there. But it's the key, what is big data for you? Is it the velocity of the data? Is it variety of the data? Is it it's just the the time taken by your existing system? Even though your data may not be too large, but it's too complex. It's from asynchronous systems. It's taking too much time to process the data, and you'll be able to get results out of data. So identify what big data means for you, and that can only happen if you identify how it fits into or how it can, and then it allows you to get the answer on how it can help you solve the problems that you're looking for. Then gaining the skills and capabilities. That's one of the reasons, as Vicky once said, behind failure in big data implementation. There are not a lot of resources out there with the real enterprise experience. And it's really important that it's not impossible, but what we have seen is it may be possible that your previous or your existing resources may not be able to help you with your big data implementation. Your existing DBA may not be able to quickly understand what NoSQL is and how to implement in your ecosystem. So it's important that you gain those skills. And what we have suggested before, that you identify a right strategic partner, someone like Metascale, who can help you with a neutral view of the marketplace, that we have no specific affiliation with a certain distribution or certain analytics software, visualization software, or a processing layer. Important to understand the lay of the land, understand the market better, and understand who are the right partners for you, or what kind of right software do you need. And then you get that you have a choice to hire a talent initially. Then you can in parallel you can grow talent within. So what we did at Sears, one of the big use case we had was moving our mainframe processing to Hadoop, and so we could reduce our MIPS usage on mainframe and save a lot of money. And in order to do so, we actually had to train a lot of our COBOL programmer to Pig. So even though the process was, it took us some time initially to figure it out and put the whole strategy around it, but it was a very successful initiative, and we were able to grow our talent within, while able to initially get some help outside. And this is a service we provide at Metascale to other companies to how really build the talent, whether as part of our training services or as part of our implementation. This is the key. You have to have the right talent to have a successful implementation now and grow that implementation in the future. So there are others like infrastructure architect, budgeting, and risk. And I just kind of combine all of them together because they're all related to, again, making the final decisions around how Hadoop and other big data technologies will impact your existing ecosystem, and how much money do you really want to spend on it. There's a funny story actually on budgeting. We were talking to this large hospitality company, and when we talked to the CFO, and we actually showed the numbers of that, how a couple $100,000 can do for you. The answer was really, perhaps it's not good enough. They're so used to spending millions of dollars that they couldn't really, get the fact that with the very established open source technology now that a lot of enterprises are adopting, you're able to do things without spending a lot of money. So it's important that you have the right budget in mind, and it's important that you understand how you spend that money and in what phases. You may want to start small, as I said. You want to do a couple of POC, spend a little bit of money, and then from there you slowly grow your investment. And that's a part of Hadoop where it comes really handy. Hadoop is it's flexible, it's scalable, and it's very fault tolerant. So you don't need to buy that 500 node cluster today. You can start with a 50 node cluster today, and then slowly grow your implementation from there as your needs grow, and you better understand how to go about it. So I come back to, of all the obstacles, come back to the most common obstacle that actually we have seen in talking with our prospective customers and other companies. A common obstacle is identifying a business use case. A lot of organizations struggle to find that use case. They know the benefit of big data because, as I said, they're listening to presentations like this, or attended the webinar, or been into conferences and whatnot. But it's important that you, again, take a step back, find a partner who can help you identify the use case. And the use cases are sometimes as simple as using Hadoop as a storage device. So instead of keeping your data on expensive, so you could keep your transactional data on your EDW, but you could keep all other storage data on Hadoop. So you don't have to keep the data on tape. You don't have to use any other ecosystem to manage the data. The good part of Hadoop is that while you keep you use it as a storage device, at the same time it could be used to analyze data as well. So like this is one simplistic use case, but there are many like that. So it's important that you, as an organization, you identify the problem that you are trying to solve instead of boiling the ocean from the get-go. All right, so it's while you do that in the short term, it's also a long-term strategic vision. There are a number of points that you see here, and they all play a role in your ecosystem. They all play a role in your long-term strategy, and it's important that you're able to tackle each one of these to be able to better understand that while I'm doing this implementation is going to start or bring in new problems for me, or again, once I've established the use cases, what ahead for me? What is the long-term strategy? How do I manage my ETL? Where is my business going? What new sources of data am I expecting? And then have that long-term vision around your implementation, so you're able to meet your needs for future and able to handle the business challenges that you're anticipating today. All right, so this one is Hadoop alone is not big data analytics, and that's important to understand. A lot of companies think that Hadoop can solve all the problems for you, and what we tell them that Hadoop and or other big data tools, they may be able to solve a lot of problems, but they may not be an answer to every problem that's out there. It's a part of ecosystem. A common question I get all the time is, can Hadoop replace my existing EDW? And generally what we tell our other companies that Hadoop is a good complementary system for EDW. It may not be a complete replacement today. And part of that is because you've already made your investment on your EDW, you don't need to throw all of that out to bring in Hadoop or any other technology. What you could do, or what you can stop yourself from doing, is you don't need to make bigger investment in your existing EDW technology. You don't have to spend millions of dollars to buy a terabyte or 2 terabyte of data. On Hadoop, you can buy it in thousands of dollars. So Hadoop is a part of ecosystem. You need to be able to integrate it with your RDBMS, ingest data from different sources into Hadoop, but at the same time have the strategy that what if that fails, how do I get the data back? So at Metascale, we have actually filed patent in building technology where we can get data from various asynchronous sources into Hadoop and vice versa, and put the data back from Hadoop to these sources. So again, other points here are making Hadoop secure. That seems to be a concern to a lot of companies that we talk to. And there are different ways of doing around it. The traditional security that's based on Kerberos, that's out there, but there's a lot of development happening in this area. There are a lot of new tools, a lot of new security layers that are coming out, and we've seen some really cool vendors out there that actually help with the security that are out there. So this is something, these are all the consideration point for you as you're getting into your Hadoop or big data investment. All right. So last, and I believe this is the final slide. There are other considerations such as, okay, Hadoop and NoSQL are open source, but is it stable? Is it secure? Is it mainstream? And where we are with these technologies, I think it's more of a mindset issue. It's more of, is open source the right solution? I think with tools like Hadoop and other big data technologies, it's already there. We have seen it in our parent organization. We have seen it with many of our customers, where we have implemented this technology and seen the benefit of it. Somebody says that what we have also heard is Hadoop and NoSQL technologies are relatively new. And certainly there is a lack of talent in the marketplace. This is what you need to realize, that when you say new, it's because there are not many people who have 20 or 30 years of implementing Hadoop. There are still things being figured out. There's a lot of development happening on top of in the Apache open source market, and a lot of really cool tools, a lot of really good tools that are coming out. And as I said in my previous presentation, there are large mainstream enterprises that are making their tools open source. So you really don't need to spend a lot of money. You really don't need to buy a vendor-specific solution and block yourself for long term with that vendor. Versus, we recommend that find a strategic partner who can actually help you implement these open source tools and can also help you what vendor solution may make sense for you. All right, and the final point here is maintaining a productional enterprise environment. It's important that you, again, there are because security is a concern, the new tools are coming. So there are, we used to talk about MapReduce before, now we have Yarn, and we have a lot of work happening in Hadoop search and whatnot. So you need to have an upgrade strategy, and that upgrade, you could use commercial tools to do the upgrade, or you could use manual tools. There are different ways around it. You need to have infrastructure solution. Do I use a commercial tool to manage my infrastructure, or do I use open source tools like Nagios, Ganglios of the world to manage my cluster? So there are a lot of these considerations that are out there that as a company you may face challenge in deciding. So it's important to find the strategic partner who can help you make sense of it, help you identify what are the commercial tools, what are the open source tools you could use, and ultimately help you do it on your own in next couple of years. So while you don't have to make all the investment to build that operational team or the Hadoop resource team today, but with the help of a right strategic partner, you can get started quickly, focus on your business, but in parallel, over a certain period of time, whether it's 1 year or up to 3 years, you're able to build the talent pool. You're able to build those capabilities in-house that you can take it all on your own. So this was just a preview to some of the challenges. Again, as I recommend, download our white paper on making a case for Hadoop in your organization. There is a webinar to that, or feel free to reach out to Metascale team. Our contact information is actually it's given in the last slide here. We have your 1-800 number, or send us an email at contact@metascale.com. Thank you for your time today.
All righty, Ankur, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sebastian.
So much.
It was my pleasure.
Great talk. So I'm going to send you off this way, and then I'm going to say goodbye to everyone.